Well, as the country continues the celebration of America's 250th birthday with the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, taxpayers are now seeing new reports of fraud losses in the hundreds of billions annually. The Biden administration called the government's only estimate of annual fraud losses not plausible. Now, the Trump administration says fraud costs taxpayers hundreds of billions annually. The Center Square reporter Brett Rowland reports the U.S. Government Accountability Office estimated in April 2024 the federal government loses between $233 billion and $521 billion annually to fraud. It was the first and only government-wide estimate of its kind, representing 3% to 7% of average federal obligations. Now, the estimated losses work out to between $1,400 to $3,200 for each of the nation's estimated 162.8 million individual income tax filers, according to IRS data. Now, the wide range reflects different risks over the 5-year period the estimate covers. The Biden administration rejected the estimate. Jason Miller, then the deputy director for management at the Office of Management and Budget, said in April 2024 that the estimate was not plausible and would, quote, create confusion and promote misleading generalizations that have no factual connection to specific federal programs. The Trump administration is taking a different view. Brett reports an OMB spokesman telling the Center Square that while it's hard to know the exact figure, annual losses to fraud have been enormous, certainly numbering in the hundreds of billions. But none of the GAO's 3 recommendations has been fully implemented. As of March of this year, OMB had no updates on 2 recommendations aimed at improving fraud-related data collection. A 3rd recommendation, directed at the Treasury Department, also remains open. We talked to the Center Square's Brett Rowland late last week about other taxpayer issues, like the end of the Department of Government Efficiency. That's coming up. Stay tuned for that. Now, a report raising some alarms.
Just to kind of highlight the different ways and untraditional ways in which they're pursuing this plan, Director Wray, let me ask you, what in your view could you say in this setting is the counterintelligence risk posed to U.S. national security from Chinese students, particularly those in advanced programs in the sciences and mathematics?
I think in this setting, I would just say that the use of non-traditional collectors, especially in the academic setting, whether it's professors, scientists, students, we see in almost every field office that the FBI has around the country. It's not just in major cities, it's in small ones as well. It's across basically every discipline. And I think the level of naivete on the part of the academic sector about this creates its own issues. They're exploiting the very open research and development environment that we have, which we all revere, but they're taking advantage of it. So one of the things we're trying to do is view the China threat as not just a whole of government threat, but a whole of society threat on their end. And I think it's going to take a whole of society response by us. So it's not just the intelligence community, but it's raising awareness within our academic sector, within our private sector as part of the defense.
Well, in that vein, last week I wrote a letter to 5 higher education institutions in Florida about the Confucius Institutes, which are funded by Chinese government dollars at U.S. schools.
That's former FBI Director Christopher Wray answering former U.S. Senator Marco Rubio's questions about the threat China poses by being in schools in a recent report raising alarms about security and the taxpayer funding of foreign students, especially from China. Strategy Risks reports Missouri State University's MBA pipeline for Chinese state-owned enterprise executives, government officials, and defense contractors may have received tens of millions of dollars in U.S. taxpayer support while training individuals who later assumed senior positions in China's defense industries, surveillance technology sector, and state-owned enterprises. Now, joining us to break that report down is Sam Schulman. He's Director of Research at Strategy Risks. Sam, thanks for taking time with us. Let's unpack this report. We heard a little bit of Christopher Wray answering the question from Marco Rubio from back in 2018. But why does this issue matter?
Well, this matters because our report raises questions about possible oversight and transparency in international university partnerships. It argues that a publicly funded university, MSU, trained executives who later held positions in Chinese state-owned enterprises, which included companies in China's defense sectors. So these are important issues and questions for policymakers and that the public may want to reasonably examine.
Let's get into a little of the specifics here, because your guys' report's pretty thorough. Tons of footnotes spanning all around the globe. But how long was this program operating, and where was this program operating? What was your guys' magnifying glass on?
Right. So it was operating in the U.S. at Missouri State and has been running since around 2001. So over 20 years.
So over 20 years, how many different students were you able to glean may have gone through these types of programs?
We gleaned over, our estimate is over 1,500 students.
Over 1,500 Chinese students. What kinds of graduates did the program ultimately produce?
Various kinds, but what the report highlights is that graduates went on to leadership roles at these state-owned enterprises, various Chinese government organizations, including companies in aerospace, defense, AI, and other strategic industries. And we cite a few examples, like AVIC was one that we mainly focused on, which is a Chinese state-owned aerospace and defense conglomerate. It's been sanctioned by the US since, I believe, 2020, and iFlyTech, which is an AI and speech recognition company known for voice technology, but also for surveillance technology. And we highlight that they had been involved in surveilling the Uyghur population in Western China, which has been reported to be persecuted over many years at this point.
Sam, talk a little bit about the admittance here. You talked 1,500 different students over the span of 20 years or so. Who was controlling the admittance of these students? What kinds of qualifications and criteria did you guys find out that they had to meet?
That's a great question. And so while MSU would have had the final say, and they're actually the ones admitting the students, our report highlights that Chinese partner institutions really controlled candidate selection and the makeup of each cohort. And in some cases, participants also received admissions accommodations, which included being able to bypass the TOEFL, which is an English language exam, and the GMAT, which is another standard exam for business school admissions.
There's a lot of international students that come to the United States, right? I mean, the United States is kind of a bastion of freedom and liberty and these types of things. Where else is this happening? And is it just Chinese students to be concerned with, or are there other countries that might be somehow gaming this system?
I don't think this is a unique case. And we're working on a few others within the US, which I'd be able to speak more about probably at a later date, but it's not restricted only to MSU. And on the donation side, last year we released a report on Harvard and the CCP's influence there. So this appears not to be a unique case, and I wouldn't be surprised if it applies in other countries too.
All right, let's talk about the taxpayer element of this. How much exactly were you able to find that taxpayers in the United States were paying for this pipeline?
That's a fantastic question. So in our report, we provide our best estimate for what that number could look like, but we don't have actual like financial documents from MSU to fully confirm this. And that's actually something we're really excited about. Since we've released this report, one of the things we're hoping to get from MSU is a little more clarity on their accounting. So, yeah.
But some of the projected taxpayer costs from your report could be, again, looking to get that clarification, but $27,000 per student with 1,500 students enrolled by 2018. And your report also highlights that's about $40 million. And then you have an additional 500 that were enrolled through 2024, and that just adds to that overall cost. $54 million possible taxpayer funds here that helped facilitate this pipeline.
That's right. That's right. That is our estimated total based on the publicly available information we were able to comb over. But at the same time, we would need to see like a full financial audit. And one thing we'd love to see is for MSU to be able to fully disclose where the money was coming from, how it was handled. And if it wasn't taxpayer money, was it just from the university? Those are important questions.
You know, in the opening clip with former Senator Rubio talking about Confucius centers and the influence that the Chinese Communist Party could be putting on to universities, where does this program stand today? Is this something that Congress needs to delve deeper into?
Well, today, it appears that the program's still up and running. While this was not like the main focus of the report, we also do highlight that MSU has a partnership with Liaoning Normal University in China, and that they very recently, over the past few months, signed an agreement with the university to extend the program a further 15 years. So they're certainly still in touch. I think we also highlighted an example of a job posting from last year or the year before for a China program specialist at MSU. So it appears that these programs are still ongoing and active.
Again, $27,000 possible taxpayer cost per student for 1,500 students that have been enrolled through 2018, about 500 more through 2024. Sam, encapsulate this again. Why is this important? Why should people care about this?
Well, it ranges from people interested in geopolitics to those concerned about the education system in the United States. You touched on this before. Of course, it's so great that the U.S. has such a wonderful education system, and that people come from all over the world to attend some of the best institutions. But at the same time, these universities need to also consider where their students end up, what their students are learning, and where they're applying that knowledge in the future. So I think this actually has appeal to quite a broad audience.
I would imagine some members of Congress also are going to be taking interest in your report and future reports. Sam Schulman, Director of Research at Strategy Risks, greatly appreciate your time, and we'll check back in with you on future reports.